I'm giving my last remark as a Thrive champion in regards to the ICASA 2025. I think one of the highlights has been how we have seen the words of sustainability and integration show up, how we are looking to integrate HIV and STI and other elimination of this pandemic together. But one of the conversations that we have left behind is the conversation on gender-based violence against women living with or affected by HIV. I think it's a conversation that we need to bring back on the table. How gender-based violence could be a factor to women not accessing the HIV services that we need and the interventions that we need. Put back the conversation on gender-based violence, especially the new forms of gender-based violence. In response to the 16 days of activism, let's end gender-based violence in social media and virtual platforms by being accountable on what we do on the social media spaces.
We have learned, we have seen, and we have planned for a lot in the future. There was a bit of a gap from my end, I've noticed, between the interlink between gender and new HIV infections, but also a great conversation between the impact and the role of gender-based violence in new HIV infection, particularly among adolescents and young women in our countries. In a continent where we live, we understand the impact of tradition, of culture, of misogyny among women and girls in our society. So in our continent, in our conference, I believe this would have been a great space for us to have this conversation with our policy makers, with our leaders, with our guardians, caregiver men and women at the Accra ICASA. And if we don't name GBV as a major source of HIV infection, we still come back to this conversation that's why adolescent girls and young women still majorly impacted and infected with HIV and AIDS. So there's still a gap on that, and I'm hoping there's room to give feedback, but also as advocates, as women, we are here to stand and name GBV as a major cause of HIV infection, because if we then name it, it will be hidden in the books and in the shadow. So we are happy to be here. We have pushed to demand, and the work is still more for each and every of us to name gender-based violence as a cause of new HIV infections in our society.
It's actually surprising that ICASA is being hosted during the period where we are marking the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. But one thing that strikes me is the fact that in men involvement is actually not coming out loud when it comes to matters and conversations gender-based violence. I mean, women are the perpetrators, are the victims of gender-based violence, and men are actually the real first perpetrators of the same. And so when we continue having these conversations about how to eliminate gender-based violence in our society, and we continuously leave men out of these conversations, then who exactly are we directing our focus to? I think we need to move away from the societal predetermined ideologies on how women are expected to behave or how men are supposed to behave, and look how we can work collectively and collaboratively with our men, our counterparts, to be able to push for positive masculinity. Let us be hitting the nail on the head by calling perpetrators by their name, but also normalizing having those same perpetrators in the room to hear our concerns and to see us talk about freedom of autonomy, and also to hear us come up with interventions and even plans that will work for us as women. We need to be having opportunities where we can be able to walk into facilities and get health-related intervention and services without really having to worry about, does my husband know, does my husband don't know. At this era, we do not need permission whatsoever. What we need is support and solidarity. And I'm calling around all women in Africa, because ICASA is happening in Africa, and the face of HIV in Africa is sadly a woman. We need to change this narrative. It needs to shift. And for it to be able to shift successfully, we need to own our bodies. We need to enjoy freedom of autonomy. We need to be able to speak, and not just speak for the sake of speaking. We must speak boldly, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we remain to be the hammer, the hood, and the blueprints.
Accountability, resilience, and solidarity.
Name it
to end it.